Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
I'm Pete Wright, and today we continue the budding romance between Thor and Agent Coulson.
I thought it was between Captain America and Agent Coulson. Wait
Agent
a
Coulson
minute.
is quite promiscuous
Or was it Pepper?
with his fandoms.
All right, that's right. Today we're talking about minute 62, which begins with Steve snooping and ends with Coulson and Thor talking about Erik. Back on the show from all the way back at the beginning with minute 1, Travis Bowe from the Real Comic Heroes podcast. Hello, Travis.
Hello.
We are looking forward to chatting with you for the next 4 minutes. We've got you for 62 through 65. This should be fun. What was it that drew you to this part of the film that you wanted to discuss?
It's tomorrow's minute, the little walk and talk between Coulson and Thor.
So the romance then. You're a real,
absolutely.
Could have been written by Shonda Rhimes this minute.
It's interesting because I hadn't really been thinking about it that way, but as soon as you said that, Pete, I'm like, that is interesting. Coulson, he's got a lot of ins right now with some of these heroes. He's got Thor from the last one, and this really plays out in these next couple of minutes. There was the whole thing with him and Captain America and all the awkward conversations that they had about watching him while he slept and all that good stuff, my trading cards. And, and then, of course, now he's Phil with Pepper. And then because of that, Tony is now trying to get in on it, on the good Phil juju, because, he's like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on with Pepper? I want the Phil relationship too. Hey, why don't I fly you up to Portland?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
They're really setting Phil up to be best friends to everybody here.
Everybody.
Does, Banner doesn't get any one-on-one time with him, does he?
He's the one, I guess, who doesn't. Not just the one, but I mean, Natasha obviously is, and obviously Clint isn't going to be getting any one-on-one time with him. But still, of the ones who are kind of the new ones to this particular group, Bruce doesn't get any time.
But look, you guys, here's the thing. Coulson is a guy who goes to cons, right? He's a legit fan. And now you're putting him in a situation in which he is standing with the actual superheroes. Tell me you wouldn't act the same way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Andy, I know you're made of stone, so you probably would be fine.
That's right.
But me and Travis, no, we'd be melting.
Fangirling the entire trip.
It is interesting. And I suppose it's clever on the part of the writers to craft it that way, to really give us this character as not just an audience surrogate, kind of, not a superhero who's kind of helping the heroes out, but really is becoming closer with so many of them over the course of this film, so that when a particular thing happens at a certain point in the film, it hits us that much more. And so it's sharp writing. And it's also just nice here getting kind of the return of these two characters who didn't really have much of a relationship in Thor, but certainly had scenes together. And, at the end of the film, there's definitely that sense that they've grown some respect for each other over the course of that story. So, and now we're getting a follow-up on that.
Something you said about, Coulson being, of course, he is the everyman. He is our window into this movie. It made me think of Hellboy, and his name's Myers, I think, and he's the rookie agent who's being brought into the team, and you're meant to meet the team, meet these freaks, sort of thing through his eyes for the first time, and then it's obviously doesn't play out the same way, but it just kind of reminded me of that same kind of archetype, I guess. Yeah,
it's very much an archetype, and it's certainly something that in this type of film, I think it certainly helps finding a character who is just a normal everyday Joe who can be there with all of these people, and it just makes us drawn to them that much more when we can see that there is that connection they have.
Well, and he's just so likable, right? He's so likable. He is the perfect. Clark Gregg is the perfect everyman for this role. He just pulls it off. And when he turns, as much as we've as much as we've talked about, the way he performs falling upstairs and the way he performs shaking in an earthquake situation, the fact is, when he says she'll be safe, got to tell you, I believe you.
Yeah,
I believe you, Agent Coulson. I believe that she's going to be fine.
No, yeah. I mean, he's great at those little beats. So it was nice to see. I just actually rewatched The Usual Suspects from '95, and I caught him in there. He was a doctor in there, and I completely did not remember that he was in that film. But it was just exciting to see young Clark Gregg, working in these bit parts in projects all the way back then. So, and he certainly has had a burst into the public eye because of all this. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So before all of this, though, we're coming in on this minute as Steve is creeping around in the storage room. Now, in the last minute, as he kind of breaks the door open, there are some people kind of walking away on the top. There's the open hallway, I guess it would be, above him. It looks like they're kind of leaving. I'm assuming everyone's gone, and I'm assuming they don't hear him breaking the door because he's able to kind of creep around. But what kind of space? I mean, we talked about this a little bit in the last minute, but it's such a strange space to have here on the helicarrier. We've got this big storage room full of tons of stuff. It looks like the Raiders thing, as we discussed. But it also seems like it's kind of like another open area where there are people working and stuff. So I don't know. It's a strange little area. I'm not exactly sure. Does it feel like this is just designed here to be very plot specific, or does it feel like there's logic for having a huge storage room like this on the helicarrier?
That's where I start my notes too. I feel like we're suddenly in a factory or a warehouse in Cleveland, which is probably where we're at. It's probably where they're filming this.
Yeah.
And because of this, I lose all sense of scale with the helicarrier. We're suddenly in a warehouse, and then I forget. Is he off the helicarrier? Is he investigating, in some warehouse district in Burbank? I mean, I don't understand where we're at. And then, not to jump ahead, but then leaving this sequence and then going through a tunnel with a truck, I'm like, how big is this helicarrier? It's got a road, it's got a tunnel, right. And then I'm like, oh yeah, now we're changing, scenery entirely, and this is the bad
those
guy.
Villagers right there? I think there are villagers.
But suddenly, because of this space, I just forget, where we're at, and like, I don't care for this as a location within the helicarrier.
It is really strange, and it's strange the way he finds it, the way he sniffs out the cover-up, the way all of the things, I think, is just really weird. But I think, Andy, your point stands. This is a plot-driven location. This is so we see Cap discovering something without a whole lot of attention to how it was blocked and built.
Yeah, and I guess that's where we kind of have to leave it. It's because it just feels like they needed a place to store a bunch of old Hydra weapons. So sure, why not put it in a room in the helicarrier, because Steve is going to need to find it. And that's pretty much all we have with this.
It's been a week or two since I've watched the full movie, and I know he shows back up with
the weapon,
confronts Tony, and then the whole group assembles, and he shows up with some stuff that he finds. Do they show him in this location finding anything, or does it cut here and then we don't see him again until he shows up with what he's found?
No, he'll see. He will open
Okay. I couldn't remember if I was piecing that together. Okay.
Right. Yeah. We'll see him open up one of the things, and he finds the Hydra gun,
the old gun,
and kind of it looks almost like an outfit, from one of the Hydra soldiers. It's in the section when Natasha is talking to Loki, and he has that whole thing about you work for liars, and or whatever that whole thing is. And while that's happening, we're getting that whole montage of Tony and Bruce breaking into S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, and S.H.I.E.L.D. Hill and Fury get the notification that they're being hacked, and then he's recovering all those weapons. So yeah, that's all in this episode.
Yeah.
So we will see a little bit more of this particular scene here. I guess what we're just getting right here is Steve has had the seed planted, and now he's not going to be able to let this go. He is going to need to dig deeper. And I guess he's just lucky that the storage facility that they use also happens to be on the helicarrier, because
yeah.
It probably makes sense for it to be in DC or New York or somewhere else. But hey, no, let's put it on the helicarrier because everything else is. So we get that a little bit, but you mentioned the truck in the tunnel. So now we're cutting to the truck in the tunnel. What is interesting about this is that, friend of the show, Jay Shepard, MCU location scout himself, this is one location that he has not been able to pinpoint from this movie. And it speaks to the fact of just how generic of a tunnel it is, really. But he has looked and has yet to be able to find exactly where this tunnel was. I don't know if it was in Cleveland. I don't know if it was in Albuquerque. My guess is it would be one of those two places. But I mean, it's just a truck in the tunnel.
But if Jay can't find it, it doesn't exist. Legit, it's a CGI truck and tunnel.
It's all CG.
It was all CG. It's animated.
It's all miniatures. That's the crazy thing.
It is. It's all miniatures. That's right.
Based on the signal that we see later when we get the gamma radiation, we're meant to assume that this tunnel is somewhere near New York City, because that is obviously where Erik is heading. It's just not filmed there, who knows? Maybe it is, because again. Yeah.
So maybe they're going. This is a tunnel underneath the Appalachian. There's somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Very well possible. Yes. Yeah.
Getting close. Yeah. But what we see here is inside the truck, Erik has yet to stop. They have now left Loki's lair. The Tesseract is on the move. We see him working with, I don't know who this extra is, unfortunately. I don't know if he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. scientist. I don't know if he's a bitter rival scientist. But anyway, he is here with Erik. Erik is working on this iridium. And as the scale says, it's 0.38 kilograms of iridium to be exact. Now, iridium is the second densest naturally occurring metal after osmium, with a density of 22.56 grams per centimeter cubed, which would put the weight at about 16.84 centimeters cubed, or the size. If you take that 0.38 kilograms, it's about 16.84 centimeters cubed. So I guess that's pretty close. I'm not sure what 16.84 centimeters cubed would look like. But it looked about like a can of soup is about how big this iridium looked.
Yeah, let's leave it at can of soup. That was a lot of math, Andy. I'm really impressed. So many measurements.
I did some math of my own, but it was an entirely different. See, I'm around second 18. You can kind of see the whole of the inside of this truck. And I looked up how tall Stellan Skarsgård is. He's 6'3", and I think the width of the inside of this trailer is 2 Stellan Skarsgårds, which is a unit of measurement. So what that would put this truck, the interior of this truck being like 12 and a half feet. And, standard box truck is like 8 feet wide on the inside. So I think there's some trickery here.
I would bet you're right. I would absolutely bet that this is one of those, it's close. It's close.
Yeah. I just find it so strange that box truck manufacturers don't use a full Stellan Skarsgård measure.
Well, it's the whole standard versus...
It just feels like using a fractional Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah, that's right. Maybe imperial. Yeah. It's imperial versus metric. You don't want to even see a metric Stellan Skarsgård. There's so many decimal places.
What's the volume of a Stellan Skarsgård?
See? I wonder if ChatGPT can answer that. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. What's the volume of Stellan Skarsgård?
I don't think Stellan would want us talking about his volume.
Are you kidding? This might be the only thing that ever gets him to pick up the phone. Here's the problem I have with Stellan Skarsgård in this movie. It's not a problem I have with Stellan Skarsgård, as you know, is without flaw. He is a perfect specimen and performer, and also is 6'3" tall. Now, my problem is, do we have any rational setup for Stellan Skarsgård to be deteriorating before us over time? He looks terrible in this sequence. What has happened to him?
It makes total sense. He's so focused on the task at hand. He's just ignored all social norms. He probably hasn't showered in a week now. Just hasn't shaven. I love this disheveled look to him. It does make me question why Barton isn't as equally as,
yes,
grizzled looking later. But
is it because he's working with the test, foreign object?
Mm-hmm.
He's studying.
Well, and I think too, a point that you made a while back, Pete, about Stellan Skarsgård, or I should say about Erik Selvig, is that science? I'm going to do it.
I was thinking. I'm going to do that science.
When he has science showers like this in front of him, showers, shaving, none of that matters.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me so much of something I didn't understand about Batman 89 for the longest time. Like halfway through the movie, suddenly the TV reporter looks gross. He's got zits on his face. You can tell he just looks nasty. It's like, I finally understand. I'm old enough now to understand the plot of the movie, that there's a war on cosmetics and he can't use, anything to clean himself. So I kind of get that same, like if you don't notice it, it's not going to break the movie. But if you notice it, it's a nice little touch that he doesn't care about himself at this point. He just wants to do science.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about Erik is, I mean, as he said, the Tesseract, working with the Tesseract has like opened his mind, and he's like seen so much more and learned so much. Like that conversation that he's having with Loki earlier when he and Clint are talking about stealing the iridium. We're really starting to get that sense of this is Erik, and he's starting to kind of lose his mind a little bit to working with the Tesseract. Like it really does put him on this path where I kind of feel like even if he wasn't under Loki's control, he probably would be like, but I still have to finish this. I'm so excited about the prospects of this.
It's a clever thing they do with him in Thor, the Dark Thor, that where we meet back up with him and he's gone a little crazy.
Right, right. Running around naked at Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question though about him and really Clint is neither of them, or I should say both of them, are still under Loki's power. Loki no longer has the scepter. This is the first time we have seen either Erik or Loki since the attack on Stuttgart when Loki was captured. We we haven't seen the scepter yet. We'll see it shortly we just saw it in the lab. But that was the first time that we've really seen that the scepter made it here. Loki doesn't have it, though. And now we're actually getting confirmation that they are still, in fact, under Loki's power. He doesn't need to be wielding the scepter to have kind of like created this. I don't know. It's like an interesting connection, I guess, between them. Is that how we are reading this?
I guess the scepter still knows who its master is, that sort of thing, or it's not going to be controlled by anyone, I guess, except for him right now.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like we have to go back and forth on this point because later, we have the scepter in Bruce's hands, exuding some sort of authority. And I'm just not sure. But
I still think that is Loki's influence, because when Bruce is holding that scepter, he starts to get a little
feisty,
agitated. Yeah. It seems like he's now under Loki's influence a little bit. And
everybody in the room is getting agitated. It's
I love that scene.
It's interesting how the scepter or the Mind Stone inside is definitely affecting people.
Mm-hmm.
In that sequence.
I wish they pushed that further. I always thought they didn't go far enough with that.
They don't. And we'll certainly talk about that. It's just, it's so interesting to me that there is this power that remains just because Loki was wielding the scepter and he did whatever it does when he touches it to their chest, and now they're under his power. And now they remain under his power. And I just wonder, what does it take to then break thing. And I mean, I guess we'll find out later in the film.
Hard hit to the head. I wonder if the scepter, I wonder if the scepter is a conduit to channel that Mind Stone energy, and if a little bit of energy goes from the stone, transfers through the scepter into Barton, into Selvig, and everyone else. And so the energy is still within them. And that's why they're still influenced by the Mind Stone, essentially. And Loki is, for the time being, is controlling the Mind Stone, I guess. So it's still, these people are receivers for this power that Loki has right now, I guess.
Well, you know what? And maybe that makes it almost makes the Loki Selvig connection from the end of the last movie, when we come into this movie thinking that they're still connected, but maybe it's a like diminishing sort of return on that connection. Like if he's doesn't stay connected for a very long time, he gets less and less connected over time. Maybe it just wears off and it hasn't worn off yet. That's why he had to reset it in the opening sequence. I'm fishing here. I'm trying to make that work for you.
That's, we can call that a no prize. That would actually be an interesting, like over time, it slowly wears off if he's not around. So
yeah.
To a point where Erik eventually will be like, why was I working on this again?
Yeah. Right. He just wakes up one day and says, God, I really miss pineapple. Like suddenly there are a lot of weird things that have to come back into place.
Yeah, the Mind Stone is an interesting one because, I mean, eventually, obviously, it ends up with Vision, but will we ever see it used this way again? I'm trying to remember, but I don't think we do we?
No.
So that's another thing. It's like they're as needed sorts of powers with the use of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is what it is. What's happening is Erik is busy working on this. He now has the iridium. He's putting it inside this thing that he has clearly built to hold it. Again, he's moving very quickly, building these amazingly complicated things. It drops into this thing and turns on. And interesting note, as the iridium passes the Tesseract has a little extra glow.
Yeah.
It's a stabilizing agent. I'm not exactly sure why it makes it glow, but that's what it's doing. And so I guess it's just showing us that all of this stuff kind of fits into the plans.
They're all connected.
And Erik gives a little smile. So he's happy things are doing what he wants them to be doing.
That smile really sells that. I mean, we don't have to have any dialogue in this trailer to know what's going on, because we don't know what's going on really. But that smile, I think, really sells that, okay, things are moving right along for these guys.
Which is good that it is, since they are already moving to the location. It would have been terrible for him. Damn it, this was not right. We got to go back. Let's take me back to the compound. Oh, well.
Did you guys... I sense that we're about to transition out of this location and into the next. So you guys didn't notice the third person in the trailer?
Let's see.
If you go to second 17 there's a guy sitting... so the end of the trailer that we see has those plastic flaps. And then beyond the flaps, there is a guy sitting there, I guess between where they're at and the cab of the truck, I guess. Or maybe this is the end of the truck. I don't know.
Like a soldier, babysitter?
Yeah, I think...
Is it the other? He's been there the whole time.
Yeah. But I imagine he is just a soldier. He's just a guy tasked to make sure these two just stay on task, I guess.
It looks like it. It looks like he's got a beret or something on.
He looks military. He looks mercenary. Yeah.
It speaks to that mercenary sort of look that he would have. Yeah.
Someone that Barton probably was able to grab.
Well, as he said in the deleted scenes, like a lot of these people that they found were people who had something against S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not like Loki had to go around and turn everybody with the scepter to work with him. It's like there were clearly people out there who were excited to join a group that was fighting against S.H.I.E.L.D. And that looks like the sort of person who probably would be happy to do this. So yes, thank you for pointing him out. Another mystery extra that we have in this film. There are so many. So many. Yes, but we are transitioning now. We're going to the helicarrier because using Erik as a fantastic transition device, we go from Erik to Jane on the screen, and Coulson is talking about Jane and the fact that they moved her very suddenly to Tromsø, Norway, where there is an observatory. Handsome fee, private plane, very remote. She'll be safe. It's a nice way to write an actor out of the story, I suppose. For whatever reason, she either wasn't interested, didn't have time, they couldn't afford her. Who knows? But this is the excuse to just write her out of the story.
I would say that it's unfortunate that we don't get Natalie Portman in this movie. I really like Jane Foster, especially from the first Thor. I think she's great in that movie. And yeah, I would like to see her in this, just joining the science team, maybe trying to counteract what Selvig is doing. It's funny to say with a movie like Endgame now out that the 10 people in this movie, it's too much. We can't put another person in here, But at the time, this movie was already, got a lot of characters to fit and a lot of pieces to move around. So I think it's a good enough reason to make sure she's not part of the story.
I guess it's one of those things that, it does feel written, and certainly they're not at that point, as you said, later where people like, Natalie Portman or, smaller or bigger would come back just to do a bit scene, and like they aren't at that stage yet. They're certainly building to that, but it just wasn't there yet, which is too bad. My question, though, is do you think they also moved Darcy? Or is it just Jane who gets to be moved? Because, I know Jane is the scientist, but I was wondering if Darcy gets to go too.
I like to think so.
I like to think they're inseparable.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Tromsø, Norway. I found the page for the Auroral Observatory at Tromsø, their Facebook page, which actually had a picture of a building, and it fits. There's plenty of talk about the auroras in Thor from Jane, so it makes sense that they send her here. The history of auroral research in Tromsø goes back to 1919, when the first magnetic readings were performed in this building, the Geophysical Institute. In order to mark the centenary, the Arctic University of Norway established this page to communicate facts about the Northern Lights and auroral science past and present. So yeah, the Arctic University Museum of Norway has this whole Facebook page full of information about this particular observatory that she's going to. Although, does it sound like Coulson is saying that it's their observatory?
Oh, I didn't get that.
Well, because he says we've got an excellent observatory. Is it more like, hey, we know this place where we can send her sort of thing?
For the longest time, I completely missed this bit of dialogue in, the countless times I've watched the movie. It wasn't until, really paying attention to what he's actually saying for this minute that I ever caught that he says Tromsø in Norway. I just thought it was I just always missed it.
Yeah.
You can squint and hear they've got a good observatory, or we've got, I think I never heard we've.
I think it's easy to look at it either way. Yeah.
But it could be that type of, for someone like Jane Foster, they've already probably figured out if we ever have to move her, we're going to send her to this observatory in Norway.
Yeah. I like the bit in this conversation, Thor thanks him and everything. And then they're talking about Erik, and Thor says Erik's a good man. And Coulson says he talks about you a lot. I really do like to think about all of these people like Pepper and Erik and Phil going out for drinks whenever they get a chance. Totally. I feel like that needs to happen. That would be a great one shot to do, is just have these three just hanging out talking about stuff that is completely unrelated to the movies.
The support group for the...
Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have anything else for this minute. Do either of you have anything, or should we wrap up so we can talk? Come back tomorrow to talk about minute 63 with more of this conversation.
I do.
Oh,
I do. I'm pretty excited to report this to you guys. That it was actually Travis's math that has unlocked an awful lot for us. I have had an extended conversation with ChatGPT, and it really was recalcitrant at first, but I was able to come up with, in fact, a useful conversation converting a human body to volume. And let me tell you, ChatGPT did not want to have any thing to do with it for the longest time. I'm sorry. But as I mentioned earlier, sarcastically, it doesn't make any sense to talk about the volume of a person. Volume refers to the amount of space that a three-dimensional object occupies. People are three-dimensional objects, but their volume is not measured the same way as a cube or a sphere. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to help you. Well, I got there, ChatGPT, and the answer is one Stellan Skarsgård is 6 foot 3 inches, 190.5 centimeters, and 66.67 liters. So we could use a Stellan Skarsgård to refer to an awful lot of stuff. I feel like we might have unlocked the secret of the Tesseract.
I think so.
Using Stellan Skarsgård.
66.6 liters.
Yep. This is important stuff, everybody.
Yes. This is great. This is the good stuff, everybody. This is why you're here. Travis, you have a new show that's out there. Why don't you tell everybody about that and what else you have out there?
Yeah, I sure do. And my new show, it formed in between my appearance on minute 1 of this show and now it.
What?
Yeah, I hadn't even come up with it back then. I'm doing a show called Minute of Thieves, where I will be going through the Kevin Reynolds, Kevin Costner, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1 minute at a time.
Fantastic.
Andy and Pete have already been guests on it. We've recorded some episodes. They'll be back for later episodes. And like I say in one of those episodes, I completely stole this format of theirs of letting guests kind of pick and choose and choose minutes that don't, that aren't back to back. So,
Travis, I mean, come on. Everything we do it for you.
Right.
Oh,
nice.
I see what you did there.
I see what you did there.
That was an arrow straight to my heart, Pete.
Well played.
Travis, where's the site for that?
Oh yeah, just search Minute of Thieves on all your social medias. I'm still in production on the show, so I don't have a website landing page for it yet, but we'll worry about that later. But if you search Minute of Thieves, of course, this episode is going to come out way before I'm releasing episodes. So,
gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Well, search for that, everybody, and we'll have a link to Travis's other stuff in our show notes. So check all of that. Travis, thank you so much. Thrilled to have you back.
My pleasure.
And we'll be back tomorrow to talk about Minute 63. So, Pete, thanks as always.
Oh, Andy, I wish I could be equal to even one Stellan Skarsgård.
Don't we all? Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.